Okay, so we're going to venture into Chapter 9, Lesson 4, and we're going to talk about descriptive statistics, but we're going to talk about it in two chunks. So descriptive means it describes something. Statistics are numbers that somehow give me a picture of what my data is saying. So descriptive statistics. And we're going to talk about the measures of central tendency. And today's date is 6/1. So the measures of central tendency, things that I can measure, center being in the middle, tendency, what is it likely to be? So what likely values represent the middle of the data, okay? So we have three major middle values, and then we have one more that kind of describes the data overall. So we talked about bivariate data when we were doing our scatter plots. This one is focusing on univariate data. Bi meant two, uni means one. Variate means variable. So this is data with one variable. So this would be like asking your height, your weight, your age, your shoe size, score on a test. It's just one thing. I'm not looking at score on the test and if you're male or female. I'm only looking for one thing, okay? Only one category, right? So that's the big difference with this. And this is, generally speaking, when you're looking in any kind of periodical and they have some sort of data and they're talking about what represents that data, they're usually talking about one thing. Houses of prices of houses, incomes, number of sick days, things like that. They're just talking about one category. So let's see if you guys can remember any of your measures of central tendency that you've learned that talks about what describes the middle. So what are some things? I know Granger wants to answer because his hand came up like, I'm going to put it up. What's something you can think about, Cameron, that deals with the middle? Mean. Stop. Good. So we have mean. And this word is called the average. Oops. And actually all of these are average. But this is a mathematically calculated middle. Can you somebody explain to me how we calculate a mean? What do I do to figure out the mean? So of all the measures of central tendency, this is one that purely has to be calculated. Okay, saw your hand over there.
Add all the numbers up and then divide it by how many there are.
That's it. We add all the numbers. Then divide by how many numbers there were in the data set. Now, the reason why I added this last piece is that what if 0 was one of your numbers, okay? And you had 7 numbers. And so chances are you didn't physically say 0 plus because you know that 0 plus anything is nothing. So that you would actually be only adding 6 numbers together. Well, you're not going to divide by 6. You got to divide by 7 because that's how many numbers are in your data. Okay? All right, good. Somebody with another one that means average, but it's a different type of average. What's another one that you guys have talked about? So we got mean. Come on, you've been working on these since elementary school. They pretty much all start with the letter M. There's only one we're going to talk about that starts with a different letter, and that happens to be the letter R. So 2 more M ones. Median. Median, not medium. So it also means average, but it's a different perspective on average. This one is asking for what's in the middle of your data. That's really what this one is all about, is what's in the middle. So it's, what this one's good for is if you have outliers, then this one removes the impact an outlier has. Remember, I told you guys I stopped telling you what the class averages were because I have outliers in every single class. Where every single class I have people who refuse to either do homework or study and get like under 10%. That's a huge outlier. And so it skews what it looks like our class average is. And our class average is always much higher than the one that I'm presenting because of the fact of all these outliers are making it look worse than it really is. So I would probably venture a guess that our class average is 10 to 15% higher than what my mathematical average is, that Schooloo tells me, based on the fact of the outliers. Okay? So how do I figure out a median? What's the process for figuring out a median? How do I find the middle of a set of data? Oh, honestly, I cannot have 32 kids that can't answer a question here. Susie.
Put them all in order.
What order? Be specific.
From least to greatest. And then you find the number in the middle by crossing them off on the edges.
So put numbers in order from least to greatest. That's the crucial thing. Then find, I'm just going to say find the number in the middle. So there's 2 options really for this one. Susie mentioned one where you start crossing off a number at either end and you work your way towards you get to the middle, okay? There's also a mathematical way where you figure out where the halfway point is. Now, sometimes your median falls between 2 numbers. And so there's sometimes you have to actually find the mean of the 2 middle numbers, okay? So sometimes the mean is involved, but it's so simple because you're adding and dividing by 2 that the math is very simple to do. And most people don't even need to write it out. They can just kind of do it in their head. So I'm going to just add a little note here. So the median will fall between 2 numbers if we have an even set of data. So if even set of data. So in other words, we've got 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, so on, numbers in my group. Median falls between 2 values. Shh. So you will find the mean of the 2 values. So worst case scenario, you're going to divide by 2. Guys? All right, so that is one that means average, but it's physically what's in the middle. Okay, Nancy, gum, every day. I can't stand looking at it. Okay, now there's one more M word that means middle. And this is your favorite word for what middle is, and this is your argument with your parents when you want something, is this word. Danielle. Mode. So this is what you guys like to say is, well, everybody else has it. I should be like everybody else. So you're going with what you think most people have. So while it means average, it's really about popularity. It's about what shows up most. Okay. Now, the best way to define mode is to go ahead and put your numbers in order from least to greatest and figure out, see the number that shows up the most. If you don't organize your data from least to greatest, then you're kind of picking around, and it's really easy to overlook a number. So list numbers in order from least to greatest. Then find the number, and it can be, I'm going to put a parentheses here, because it can be more than one mode. The number of numbers that shows up most. So, mean you have to calculate. Median, sometimes you have to calculate, but it's a small problem to do. You never calculate mode, okay? So, again, there could be no mode. And in this case, all show up the same. That's parentheses. So everything shows up twice, we don't have a mode. You need to find something that shows up more than everybody else. There could be one mode where there's only one number that shows up more than anything else. And you can have, let's see, what do they call it? Multi-modes? I've heard it called so many different things. I'm going to just say more than one mode. So numbers that show up more than the others. But the same number of times as each other. Okay, so the last one, I'll give you a running start, doesn't talk about average, it's talking about spread, and it starts with the letter R. Danielle? Range. Can anyone tell me how I calculate range? So I'm going to write here, it's the spread of data. And this one is calculated, but it's a simple calculation. Ideas?
You find the greatest number and the least number, you subtract them.
Okay. You subtract the least value in the data from the greatest value. Now, range is really important and helpful because when I'm doing bar graphs or any kind of graph and I need to figure out what intervals I need to count by, the range kind of gives me an idea. If I have a large range, 100, I'm going to count by bigger numbers, like by tens. Or if I have a small range, like 15, I may count by ones. I could count by twos. So that range is really going to help me figure out intervals is a good thing. So it gives me kind of a ballpark. When I do the range, it not only with bar graphs, it works with box plots too, because I have to put that number line in underneath the bottom. So range is very, very important. Let's see. All right, so what do you think is the very first thing you should do when you're asked to figure out these measures of central tendency, including the range, with your data. What should you do with your data to get ready to find the mean, the median, the mode, and the range? Simon? Exactly. Put them in order from least to greatest. 3 of the 4 require that, but it actually can help you with doing the mean because you can cluster numbers together and add them more quickly. So I'm going to make a big note here. Always write data in order from least to greatest before finding these values. Okay? So again, this should be pretty interesting. Now, sometimes they give you a large set of data, sometimes they give you a small set of data. It just really kind of depends upon what the problem is. In the Math 8 class, 8A class, we're kind of working on this now, and we're dealing with ideas like having a ton of data, like 30, 40 numbers that we have to contend with. So when you have that many numbers, then we use tools like a stem and leaf plot to help organize massive quantities of numbers. But what we're going to be dealing with are going to be fewer set of numbers, like under 20 numbers. And so we don't really need to organize them as well. Though a stem and leaf plot, and I'll show you how to use that one in case you've forgotten, is always a great way to put things in order from least to greatest. Okay, so I'll show you the same problem, 2 different directions. So we've got an example. We've got the heights of students in inches. And it's going to be given to us in a chart. We've got 66, 72, 70, bless you, 74, 64, bless you, 65, 60, 62, 66, 67, 68, 71, 70, 72, 73. And so this is how you're given your information. I'm going to tell you most of what you have to do for homework tonight, then far fewer pieces of data. The more data, the more interesting it becomes. And so that having techniques is really going to help. So our directions are going to be find, mean, median, mode, and range. Okay, so what I want to do is to remind you of a stem and leaf plot. Stem and leaf plot is just a way to organize things. The leaf is the ones value. The stem is everything else. We're in 2-digit numbers, so for us, the stem is going to be the tens digit. So I kind of looked through my data real fast, and it looks like I have numbers only in the 60s and the 70s. Because chances are that they talked to a group of students from a particular grade level, and those students all were very similar in height. So I only have 2 stems, a 6 and a 7. Okay? What I'm going to do now is look just at the leaves. And I'm not going to try to figure out how to put them in order. I'm just going to write them down as they show up. So the first number, 66, there's a leaf. That's the ones digit of 6. 72 has a leaf of 2. So 6 means 66. 7, 2 means 72. We have a 70, 74, 64, 65, 60, 62, 66, 67, 68, 71, 70, 72, 73. So that's my first round, is I just write my numbers in order from least to greatest, or no, I plot them out by their 6s and their 7s, their 60s and their 70s. Now I'm going to do it the second time. And the second time what I'm going to do is take those leaves for each of the stems and put them in order from least to greatest. So I still have 6 and 7 in my stem. So I look through my leaves on the 6s and I see a 0, that's the smallest. Then I see a 2. Then I see a 4. Then I see a 5. Then I see a 6, another 6, a 7, and an 8. So now I've just put the 60s in order. 60, 62, 64, 65, 66, 66, 67, 68. Now I'm going to put my 70s in order. So I see a 0, a 0, a 1, a 2, a 2, and a 3. Now, another thing that I do, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 3 rows of 5 or 15 numbers. I'm going to count my leaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, I missed something. Oh, yep, I did. I forgot the 4. And that's what I do. I just make sure that I've got everything. So now I've got my numbers in order from least to greatest. Okay? Now, you can take these and now write them as one big long chain of numbers if you want to. Okay, let me show you how I figure out mean using this. This is really cool. Mean. Let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers in the 60s. And then I add the leaves. I have 2 and a 4 and a 5. And I have 2 6s. I have a 7. And I have an 8. Plus, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers in the 70s. And I'm going to add the leaves. Now notice I'm not going to add the 0. And I have 1, I have 2 2s, I have a 3, and I have a 4. This just helps me get to my math a lot faster. Now, you could do it the old-fashioned way, list them out, count them up, 2 by 2, however you want to do it. So 8 times 6 is 48 with a 0. Gives me 480, and then I'm going to see what I can do here. Let's say I've got a 12. So let's see how I could pair that up. A 12 and an 8 is a 20. I have a 7 and a 5 is a 12. And I have a 6. 6. So that's 18. So 18 and 20 is 38. So I just group. 7 and 7 is 49 and a 0. So this gives me a 4. So I have 4 plus 3 is 7. Plus 4 is 11. Plus 1 is 12. And then I just add up. So I like to add up the big numbers, and I like to add up the small numbers. And this gives me 970 and 50 for a grand total of 1,020. That's the fastest way to add 15 numbers, folks. Think if you had to do it 2 at a time, it would take you far longer to do that, okay? Now, what do I do to do mean? I take that 1020 and I divide it by 15, okay? And you guys can use a calculator if you desperately need it. I can't guarantee you'll be able to use one on the test. Well, you should be able to divide at this point. So there's your mean. Median. I need to find the number in the middle. Well, I have 15 numbers. So what I'm going to do is look for, if I cut 15 in half, I'm going to get 7 and a half. What that tells me is the 8th number is going to be my median. So how do I figure it out? I count my leaves from least to greatest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm thinking that's going to be it. Now how I can verify? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 numbers in front of that number, 7 numbers after that number. Now, my median isn't 8 because it's a leaf of a 60. So my median is 68. How do I figure out a mode? Well, I look at the leaves, and I look for a leaf that repeats the most. I see 2 6s, I see 2 0s, I see 2 2s.
There's 3 zeros.
No, I can only look at it within each stem. So, the other number, hold on, don't pack up. You can wait the next extra couple minutes to do this. So, what turns out in this case is I have 3 different modes. first one is 66, the next one is 70, and the last is 72. So I have 3 modes. How do I do range? That's the simplest of all of them. 74 is my largest, 60 is my smallest, and I subtract, and I get 14.
How do you know the modes?
Whatever leaves within a stem repeat the most, and I look for, and they all had 2, so they all repeated the most. Okay. All right. Again, this is a way to use stem and leaf plot. You can always use it by just listing the numbers in order. You have a worksheet, and I'm going to guarantee the numbers are a lot shorter set of data.